Hey guys, Matt here. So, April 30th, UFC 129, GSP versus Jake Shields, Jose Aldo versus Mark Hominick, and Randy Couture versus Lyoto Machida. Now, I'm both looking forward to this fight card, but then I'm also dreading it. And it's not for the fights themselves, it's the aftermath. And what I'm talking about is, as of tonight, found out that Randy Couture has decided to retire after his fight, whether it ends in a victory for him, a loss, or even a draw. He's decided to hang it up for real this time. And, I expected it. I knew it was coming. But it happened a lot sooner than I thought. Now, I am glad that Randy's decided to leave on his own terms and not wait until he can hardly fight in the ring or not take a punch or, just be a shell of his former self. Your Mark Coleman's, Chuck Liddell's, and, he's had a great career. But I don't want it to end because he's just so enjoyable to watch. He is like my Shawn Michaels for the UFC, for mixed martial arts, where he's getting up there in age, but he always puts his heart and soul into every performance that he gives, and whether it's for a championship or not, he just wants to get out there and fight. And I really, I respect the hell out of him. He was and still is my favorite fighter. And I'll never forget the first time I saw him. It was amongst other UFC fighters. It was him, Tito Ortiz, Chuck Liddell, and Matt Hughes, who are respectively the guys that I, grew up watching when I was a huge fan of UFC. My friend asked me to pick one of those guys, and I mistakenly picked Tito Ortiz because he looked cool with the fire on his trunks and the bleach blonde hair, but then shortly after that, I decided to put my money on Randy Couture, and he's a guy that I've always stuck by and always rooted for, even though he's almost 48 now, he's still the guy that I picked, no matter who he was fighting, no matter who he was going up against. I always considered him, like many others, to be the underdog, and I always rooted for him, whether he was going to get demolished against his opponent or come out with a easy victory. He was always the guy I rooted for. He was always the guy that got me pumped, that got me scooting closer to the TV screen to watch. And though I'm not a huge mixed martial arts fan anymore, I'm gonna miss him. And it just reminds me that all the veterans that I started watching when I got into UFC, they're on their way out. And Randy leaving is going to be a huge blow for me. He's come a long way. Yeah, his record isn't that great, being, 17-10? The guy's almost 48, so he gets mad props. Coming from UFC 15, UFC 16, and then UFC 17 getting his heavyweight title shot against Maurice Smith and beating him. And that was also where Mike Goldberg, I believe, debuted and gave Randy his nickname, The Natural. And that's just what he is. He's Captain America of UFC, of all mixed martial arts. And if you guys haven't read Randy Couture's book, Becoming the Natural, My Life In and Out of the Cage, I definitely recommend it. Because there's a quote on the back made by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson that describes Randy perfectly, and it states, I might be misquoting it, but it says that Randy's heart and Randy's compassion, greatly outweighs, his fighting inside the ring, and just look at him. After every fight, every interview he gives, he never knocks an opponent, he never talks bad about them, he always says great things, and just the words that come out of his mouth, except for when he's yelling at a fighter, and cursing and whatnot, is gold. And it's just stuff that a wise man would say. And that's what he is. He's a master strategist in the ring. He always has a game plan. he's just great. He's just simply been natural at what he does. And I mean, I have pretty much every DVD with his fights on them. Granted, UFC's 15, 16, 17, and those early ones aren't on DVD yet, or at least in Region 1. You know, I have the rest of them. I mean, missing one or two. There they are. Granted, some of the fights, like UFC 46 against Vitor for the second time, weren't as long or as great as I thought, but then again, you have some really good fights. UFC 102, Randy versus Nogueira. And I'll never forget the two most memorable moments involving Randy and a buddy of mine in UFC was when Randy first retired in 2006. I remember I was at a friend's house, and it was after UFC 57. I didn't see the card. And my buddy came over, and he was like, Randy retired. And I was shocked. And so that whole night, every time we drank, every time we made a toast, it was to Randy, the natural couture. And when Randy came back in 2008, March 3rd, UFC 68, the Uprising, he was in the heavyweight class, and he fought Tim Sylvia for the championship. And man, he took it to Tim Sylvia. Just that first punch that he threw, you know, amazing. And as the fight's going on, my buddy and I are just jumping up and down, just waiting for the announcer to say Randy is the new heavyweight champion. And so, you know, there are just so many things about Randy. Little known fact, when I was in speech class in college, at the end of the semester, we had to give a speech on somebody that we admired, somebody that we looked up to. And I was really close to giving my speech about Randy. But I decided not to, even though it would have been a really good speech. I decided not to. But, you know, Randy is in my top 5 guys that I admire of all time. You know, up there with Abraham Lincoln, no matter how cheesy that might sound. So, whether you decide to retire in the ring after your fight, or in a press conference, in an interview, in a on Twitter, or even on your website, you know, just 2 words to you, Randy. Thank you. Thank you.